Hello, this is Mas Suzuki, and today we are going to have a Clubhouse session discussing and chatting about if you have Japanese supermarket in the US selling Japanese food and good all across the US, is it going to be convenient or and beneficial to you guys? So that's going to happen from the 7 p.m. PST, 10 p.m. EST, and noon in Japan Saturday. So it is going to be tonight. Please join us in chatting and discussion of that service and website. So first of all, talking about Japanese food and good service, e-commerce service. Why I came up with this idea? Number one, when I used to live in Illinois, when I was 21 years old, maybe younger than that. But anyway, I was desperate about Japanese food. That was my first time to live in foreign country, and I missed my family and girlfriend and Japanese food. And trust me, the food in dormitory was horrible back then. And I tried to find some Japanese supermarket with using internet. Back then, even 1999, there was internet with the Windows 98 and probably Internet Explorer. But anyway, it turned out to be that I have to drive up like a couple of hours to go to the nearest Japanese supermarket. And I didn't have any car, and if I did, I couldn't afford the gas to go there. So I gave it up. And I think still there are a lot of people living in the US in areas except for Silicon Valley and LA and New York where people cannot access to a Japanese supermarket. So that's some memory I had back like 21 years ago. And number two, moving forward the 21 years or even 22 years, now I got 43 years old, getting old. But anyway, I'm living in Silicon Valley, and in Silicon Valley, it's a melting pot. So we can access to Japanese supermarkets such as Nijiya, Marukai, and Mitsuwa. If I drive like 20 or 30 minutes from my house, I'm living in Los Altos, California right now. But for people like my wife who doesn't like driving a lot and who cannot drive on highways such as 101, 280, I-5, going to physical supermarket, Japanese supermarket, is tough for them, especially the wives are coming to the US for the jobs of their husband. Sometimes, a lot of times they say, well, I can, but I don't want to drive on highways. So that's an accessibility issue. And for even people like me who drives a lot, Japanese supermarkets are relatively small and a little bit cold, and overall it's so crowded nowadays. So listen, when I went to Mitsuwa in San Jose a couple months ago, there were long line of people waiting for getting in the supermarket, and we should have waited for like 40 or 50 minutes, which we gave it up because we didn't think it's worthwhile waiting in the line to buy a couple of things. So nowadays the UX to go to Japanese supermarket is not that great. And number three is Japanese people. When I talked to the principal of the major Japanese school in Silicon Valley, he said he used to have 1,750 students in his school, but now he is having just 1,500 compared to 1,750. So it sounds really bad. So it looks like that number of the Japanese people living in the US are decreasing a little bit, at least around my area. And the next thing I think is that business person aside from students and young kids. When I talk to people coming back to Japan, I ask him, all right, so you're coming back to Japan, I'm sorry for that, but did you find any successor? But he says, no, nowadays there are not a lot of young people who like to work in the US, and I was like, what? Look at this weather in Silicon Valley. It's beautiful, and look at those huge, gigantic ecosystem in Silicon Valley, which you can learn a lot. But not a lot of people would like to work in the US. Are you serious? And he's like, yes. Well, it's really sad because when you think about the GDP of the US, still it's number one, and it's it's getting a little bit slow, but it's still growing, and the demography of young people in the US are huge compared to Japan, as you know. So tackling this market from Japan is really, really key to survive in this global world. This is my belief, but if not a lot of people are working in the US, how can we do it? So, for those problems or issues we would like to address with the e-commerce business that we are going to establish in the US in coming month. So, as a company, we could do a procure food and good domestically in the US, and of course we can import good food from Japan. And number two, of course, we can establish websites. That's a piece of cake nowadays. And C, we can do marketing digitally using video and data. And number four, maybe this is the most important part, but we are well connected in the US, especially Japanese people, based on the decades of the business history and experience in the US. So, coming back to the original issue, topic, Clubhouse session. What we're going to talk is, do you think it is going to be convenient and beneficial if you have a Japanese e-commerce supermarket? And number two, if you have that business service website, what would you like to buy? What would you like to have in terms of food and good? Is it going to be like the premium dried seaweed nori, or is it like the Akita Komachi type of rice, and so on and so forth? So I wanted to listen to your thoughts about the things that you want to buy from that kind of e-commerce site, and some services and functionalities from that kind of web services. Do you want to have, for example, community functionalities so that you can connect to other Japanese housewives and talk about the recipe, or would you like to see recipes so that you can cook Japanese food, or what kind of quality do you want to have from that service, and so on and so forth. But it would be perfectly casual conversation. It's just a chat. There's no formal things about it. So I am looking forward to chatting with you guys on Clubhouse, 7 p.m. PST, 10 p.m. EST, and noon Saturday JPT. And lastly, it's super valuable and priceless to get connected with you guys in the US to create the firm business in this country. At least we Japanese have to get connected each other, and we have to be united, and we have to talk and discuss what we can do using our strength of Japanese. So that's my strong belief as a business person. But again, talk to you soon in Clubhouse.